We're late in the season. College football season for 2024, believe it or not, is coming to a close in just a few weeks. And one of the teams who's still undefeated, one of the teams who's making a run to the college football playoff is a team from out west. And we're going to talk about BYU today and why we should stop underestimating them or why we should be more critical. I'll dive into that in just a second. Hey, if you are new to the channel, welcome. I'm Brian. I know I'm surrounded by my Clemson garb, all the Clemson stuff. But hey, I talk about other college football teams, like today, talking about BYU and are they a real championship contender. If you like what I'm doing, I hope you'll subscribe and pass it along to all your friends, whether they're Clemson fans or not. Have them subscribe, drop a line in here to say hello. I really do appreciate it. When I think about BYU, I think about Lavelle Edwards. I'm being honest. I think about that guy. I've listened to his some of the documentary done on him where he talked about having to change the way that BYU approached offense because, well, he knew that they could not recruit in the players they needed to run over everybody. You know, the whole option power football thing. And it got him a 1984 national championship. I like that type of coaching that steps back and says, hey, you know, they hired me to win, so the goal is just to win. So I highly respect that. Lavelle Edwards is truly a legend. And I know he passed away a few years ago, but I mean, that he is a true legend of college football. So when I think of BYU, I think about Lavelle Edwards. When I think about BYU football, I think about Ty Detmer. I think about Steve Young, Jim McMahon. I think about that season. I think about that season with Steve Sarkisian at quarterback in the 90s against Texas A&M. Very first game of the year. Steve Sarkisian, yes, folks, Texas, the current coach at Texas, he threw for over 500 yards against A&M in the opener. That year, they went 14-1. It was unbelievable. They won the Cotton Bowl. Lavelle Edwards was coaching then as well. Then you move on into the past few years. You had some good teams with Bronco Mendenhall and Kalani Sitake, who is their current head coach. They had that season back in 2020. They were 11-1. The only loss they had was little old Coastal Carolina here in the state of South Carolina, out near Myrtle Beach. Last year, BYU went 5-7. It was not a good season. The season before that, they were 8-5. Before that, 10-3. And like I said, for 2020, they were 11-1. But now we're sitting here looking at BYU, a team that if you look at the college football playoffs rankings for week 11, BYU is number 6 at 9-0. Now, for some of you BYU fans, this is where there's going to be some friction, maybe some contention between you and I just want to get this out of the way. I have no ill feelings towards BYU's football team, but you need to understand where I'm coming from. I understand where you're coming from as a BYU fan. You get sick and tired of hearing about the SEC. My team's not even in the SEC, but I'm up to my neck in the SEC because, I mean, take for instance, Clemson, my team, is only an hour and 30 minutes from the University of Georgia. We're right in the middle of it. University of Tennessee is 3 hours from where I live. Trust us, us Southern fans who doesn't pull for an SEC team, we hear about it even more than you do. So I understand you when you're like, man, we're being left out again. People are underestimating us. I get it. I understand it. But I'm having a hard time buying into BYU to a point, and there's another side of things where I'm looking going, they're 9-0. They are 9-0. Did I say they're the best team in the country? No, but they are 9-0. While other teams are finding a way to lose, Y'all are finding a way to win. So let's talk about this BYU team. For everybody who's kind of like me, you really don't know that much about BYU. You know about Steve Young. You know about Ty Detmer. You know about Sarkisian. You know about Lavelle Edwards. You know that their stadium is possibly sitting in the most beautiful area versus any other stadium in the country. In fact, one of my bucket list, I think at the top of my bucket list for stadiums to visit, is in Provo. And I've been told to get a nosebleed ticket and make sure it's a day game so I can see the surrounding areas. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. Let's talk about their team real quick. Who have they played? Remember, they are 9-0. So they played Southern Illinois. They beat them. They played at SMU. They won by 3 points. Now, SMU right now, they as of the recording of this video, SMU is almost a lock for the ACC championship. So they beat them by 3 points. They played Wyoming. They beat them by 20. They played Kansas State. Now, this was a big one. They beat Kansas State, 38-9. Now, that was a big win. Aside from SMU, that was a commanding win. Now, here's where we get into some bumpy areas. And, folks, I don't know if there was injuries here and there. I don't know if it was growing pains. At the end of the day, BYU won. I'll address some concerns later, but BYU beat Baylor 34-28. Closer than a lot of people felt like it should be. They beat Arizona 41-19. They beat Oklahoma State 38-35. They went to UCF, and if my memory serves me correct, UCF was like a 2-point favorite. They won 37-24. Then this past weekend in the Holy War against Utah, at Utah, they won by 1 point. We know that game got crazy. This coming Saturday, November the 16th, BYU plays Kansas. Then they're at Arizona State. And then they finish off the season at Provo against Houston. Now, if you're sitting here and you're looking at this team, you're like, okay, all right. I get it. It's a Big 12 schedule. The Big 12 and the ACC receives about the same level of respect from the major media. So BYU, we get it. Okay? Again, go back to what I said just a moment ago. Pulling for a team that's in the heart of the SEC country. And no matter how good you are, and Clemson's struggling right now. Clemson's not elite like they used to be. Clemson's got some crap to work out. But imagine, no matter how good you are, always being told, well, if you were in the SEC, I know you had that Trevor Lawrence guy. I know you had that Deshaun Watson guy. I know you had that Travis Etienne or that T. Higgins or that Christian Wilkins or Isaiah Simmons. I know you had A.J. Terrell. I know you had all these guys. I know you had Dexter Lawrence. I know you had... But if you never win, I get that frustration. Again, try living in it. Here in the upstate of South Carolina. It's annoying. But that is the view that BYU is receiving, and they know it. Let's talk about their team. Let's start with their quarterback, Jake Retzloff. This is a really cool story. Jake Retzloff is openly practicing Jewish, and so there's been a lot of small features done on this. That here he is at a Mormon school. 98% of the enrollees are Mormon. Here he is. He is a practicing Jew. He has the Star of David on him. And he's just himself. He goes there, he does his thing. They know how he believes. And this guy is just going out there and he's balling. And by the way, the reason I brought all that up is because everybody's talked about it. ESPN's talked about it. A bunch of documentaries are on it. So there's no negative thoughts or anything there. Okay, so if you're hearing that, you're hearing stuff. I think it's really cool. But this guy, he comes out and he's balling. He's thrown for almost 2,100 yards, 18 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. He likes to move around. And the thing about him is he just brings excitement. He brings excitement to the table. He brings that scrappiness that you need. The guy can run. 71 carries for 291 yards. L.J. Martin is their leading rusher. To my knowledge, he's not injured. 75 carries, 425 yards. Between he and Retzlaff, they have 9 touchdowns. They have over 700 yards between the two of them. Chase Roberts is their leading receiver. These guys have a unique opportunity. And I want to talk about this for a second. When you're a team that has the history that BYU has, like when we talk about Indiana doing well right now, it's more believable that BYU would do well than Indiana. And you're like, why? Glad you asked. Indiana right now has the best record they have ever had in the history of their program. They've never had a season like this. First-year head coach Kirk Cignetti, he's doing really, really good things up there. Now, they really haven't played anybody up to this point. I know they played Michigan, but that's not the same Michigan team that won the national championship last year. Same jerseys, same stadium, same fight song, same attitude, smack talk. Not the same team, sorry. But Indiana has not played anyone that would truly, truly test them. But it's more believable in Kalani Sitake and his team because, A, he's been there for a long time, and then, B, y'all have had some really good teams. You've had some solid teams with Kalani Sitake. So, my point is, it's more believable than Indiana. No offense, Hoosiers. Here's the place of concern. When I look at this Kansas team, Kansas is 3-6. They're 2-4. They are going to Provo, Utah. This Saturday, for us East Coast people, this game comes on at 10:15. This is part of that whole Pacific Coast time after dark, mountain time after dark deal. It's mountain time, I believe it is. It's not Pacific. Please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm pretty sure it's mountain time. 10:15. By 10:15 that night, all of us people on the East Coast, my Clemson team would have already played. Hopefully, please let them beat Pittsburgh. Please let our offense, coaching staff scheme a really good game. You have all these other teams that are going to be playing. And then at 10:15, a lot of people are going to have their TV shut off. Or if they see BYU and Kansas playing, they're going to finish the game they're watching that's still on. They're probably going to overlook it. You're used to that from the East Coast. But what is bothersome is that Kansas, who is a 3-6 football team, 2-4 in the conference, and I'm looking at their schedule. I see how they lost a close game by 2 points to Kansas State. They lost to Arizona State by 4. They lost to TCU by 11. They lost to West Virginia by 4. They lost to UNLV by 3. They lost to Illinois by 6. I see that. I see that they've played close with a lot of teams. But, folks, here's BYU fans, this is what's so difficult here. As a guy who pulls for a team who was once dominant. Clemson's not dominant like they used to be. I tell the truth about my team. I'm going to tell the truth about other teams. And on top of that, I'm in SEC country, where people pull for other teams than the winning teams, but they still take credit for the teams who win. Just trust me, it's mental gymnastics. It gets kind of weird. It's hard for us to look at this BYU team and I don't want to say take you serious, but really dive in and say this BYU team is for real when you have a 3-6 Kansas team coming to Provo after that emotional win over your rival in the Holy War. You're 9-0. You're number 6 in the current college football playoff, and you're only a 2.5-point favorite as of today over a 3-6 football team. That is the part that we have a hard time buying into. It's like, oh, they're number 6. Oh, they're 9-0, 6-0 in conference. Oh, they have Kansas. Okay, I know Kansas is not terrible. They have a good coach. I know their quarterback is iffy. One minute he plays great, the next minute it's this, that, and the other. But you mean they're only a 2.5-point favorite over Kansas? That, folks, listen to me, BYU fans. That's what takes guys like myself, who's out here on the East Coast, pulls for a totally different team, talks about other college football teams. That's what makes us stop and go, ooh. You mean you're playing against a 3-6 football team. You're number 6 in the college football playoff. You are the front runner for your conference, and you're only a 2.5-point favorite. Now, how can you fix that? Well, definitely go out and beat Kansas. Do to them what you did to Central Florida. Central Florida, I believe they were a 2-point favorite? 2.5-point favorite. I think at kickoff they were like a 1-point favorite, which is that's basically Las Vegas saying, it's a toss-up. But you would think that they would swing the toss-up in favor of BYU at the time, but they didn't. They didn't. They did not do that. And you won that game by 13. Go in and beat Kansas. Beat Kansas. Treat them like it. Now, I'm not saying you don't prepare for them. And that's how you treat them. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is treat them as the 3-6 football team as they are. Take them seriously, but put them down and put them down early. Next, you play Arizona State. Arizona State is 7-2, 4-2 in the conference. No one is looking at Arizona State and comparing them to a 2-loss Alabama. I'm not. A 2-loss Georgia. A 2-loss Ole Miss. Not in the same ballpark. Arizona State would get beat like redheaded stepchildren. Again, win that ball game. You only have 3 games left. Then you play Houston. Houston's 3-3 in their conference, 4-5 overall. I believe this is Willie Fritz's first year, the guy who was at Tulane, did great things with Tulane. And what did he do? He took his team to the Cotton Bowl and he beat Southern Cal a couple of years back. It's a great story. Everybody likes that story. It's the underdog versus the Trojans, the Romans. If you're really the number 6 team in the country, and I'm putting this out there, if you're really the number 6 team in the country, if you are really worth believing in, you put this team away too. I'm not saying they don't have talented players here and there, but good grief. I mean, they lost to Kansas, who you're about to play, by 28 points. They lost to Iowa State 20-0. They lost to Cincinnati 34-0. And look, I don't know what happened with Houston. I don't know if half their players, their head fell off their shoulders and then it rolled across the ground. But here's what I can tell you. Nobody really cares about that. They care about what BYU is going to do. So the key is for you to go in, win those games, get to your conference championship, win that, and then come what may. But I'm telling you from a non-BYU fan, I'm telling you as someone who is in the heart of the South, up to my eyebrows in SEC country, and I pull for a team in the ACC. The ACC's terrible. Everybody is waiting for y'all to misstep. And the best way to shut the mouths of critics is not by saying anything like, well, you should believe, we'll show you. Just show us. I say that to my Clemson team all the time. Don't tell me you're getting better. Just show me. You show me by not losing to Georgia by 31 points. You show me by not losing to Louisville at home at night. Don't tell me that you're better. Just show me. And that's the same thing I say to you, BYU. This is really interesting. You have a good thing going on there. The nation is paying attention. I'm looking at the college football playoff rankings for week 11. You have Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State. Don't buy them. Indiana, they have a lot to prove, but they won't be able to run away from Ohio State in a week or two. And then there's you. Who's tucked in at number 7? Tennessee, Notre Dame, Miami, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia. Look where you've got yourself. If you drop a game in these next 3 games, there's going to be a lot of people who's stepping back going, see, we told you. But you go out and you win these games commandingly. I'm not talking about 50 points. But you go out there and you take care of them like the number 6 team in the country would take care of them. Okay, more and more people are going to believe. I'm watching. I'm not sold, but I'm watching. You have my attention, and you have the attention of a lot of college football people, whether they're independents like myself or whether there's someone in the major media who everybody knows their name. They're watching Provo right now. So I'm interested to see if you're a real championship contender, if you're one of those teams that if you make it to the college football playoff and you play a Texas, you play an Ohio State, a Notre Dame, an Alabama. I'm not sold on Notre Dame, by the way. An Ole Miss. If Boise State gets in, you play one of those teams, how will you respond? Will you get blown out and then people say, hey, they should have never been there in the first place? Or do you go in and you say, not so fast, my friend? It will be interesting. I am watching. Folks, thank you so much for checking out the channel. If you're a BYU fan, let me know that you're a Cougar fan. I hope you'll pass this along to all of your BYU friends. As I said, I'm a Southerner. You can tell I'm a Southerner. I'm here in the upstate of South Carolina. I'm watching BYU. I'm watching them because, trust me, I am up to my neck in the SEC on top of my football team in the ACC. And you're making some noise. So pass it along. I'm paying attention. Drop me a line and let me know that you're a BYU fan. It'd be good to hear from you. I hope you will subscribe. It's free. The channel's growing. I really do appreciate all the subscriptions. Y'all take care of yourself. And to everybody, go Tigers.